Hi there. So if you're joining me live, will you let me know you can hear me this time and that you can see me? This is about my fifth attempt at this live video this evening, so hopefully the sound's a wee bit better and you can hear me. So anybody that's joining me live, would you let me know? Before we proceed, I'm actually going to check my phone and see where we are. And see if the sound is better. And if it's not better now, I'm going to give it up as a bad job because I've tried that long and that often. So I'm just going to double check something and then I'll be with you in 2 seconds. But if you'd let me know in the comments, that would be absolutely brilliant. And I would know that this is working and live and that you can hear me. Let me see. Oh, I think you can. Here, oh, brilliant, Kira. Thank you so much. Okay, thanks. Oh, and the sound's still very low, Billy. But Kira, you can hear and see clearly. Okay, so we'll see where we'll go. I'll plough ahead. You can let me know how you are hearing me and seeing me. Sound perfect, pitch brilliant, perfect. That's good. Billy, it might be your sound at your end as well. Just to see. Thank you so much for joining me again. You're all so kind. That's brilliant. I nearly gave up. I have had to come into the other living room, all of that stuff. Anyway, back to the real stuff. Back to the reason that you've all come back. So, what I was kind of saying in my first attempt at the video is that we're all in this really difficult time together. I suppose we're all experiencing it differently, but we're all in this difficult time together. And what I had a conversation with my husband, I thought that I would share with you because I thought it would be helpful. And basically what I had been saying to my husband is that had I not cleared, had I not worked so hard, and I suppose had I not worked at the level, the 3 levels, which is what this video is about, of clearing those wounds that I had been carrying, I honestly don't know if I would have survived and the lockdown 3. And you know, that sounds quite dramatic and I'll explain why, but I honestly don't know if I would have. I honestly don't know if what would have birthed, and that's what I was trying to explain before we ended the last video. The birthing process of a wound, of what I call a core wound, what Jeff Brown calls a primal provocateur. You can call them whatever you want, but the birthing of those wounds are incredibly difficult. And I know from the inbox that people are birthing these wounds during these times. These experiences are happening to them, these thoughts, these feelings, these somatic interpretations, this stuff is birthing through their body, and it's incredibly bloody difficult for people. And my wound, as you have heard me talk about time and time again, and I'm only labouring this to be helpful, not to be indulgent in myself. But my wound was, you know, there's nothing good, everything's dark, everything's dank, everything's depressing, everything's, you know, there's nothing of any wonder in this world. And that, for me, created, you know, that wasn't just a thought, that created a thought and created a feeling and created an experience internally and created, which is what the 3 levels of healing are about, and created this experience, explosive experience internally. And it created trauma, it created the sympathetic nervous system getting kicked in, it created a full mental hijack. That was the entire experience of that one thought. And for many people, they are birthing that now. Not exactly as I've described mine, but in their own unique ways. And it's so important that we understand what is birthing, what is happening to us, and what it takes to heal that. If it is birthing, then maybe this video will help you understand what's happening, what you're actually experiencing, and it'll help you maybe understand what you need to do. If it has already birthed and it's birthed years ago when you're sitting in the middle of it still, then this video will help you understand maybe at what stage you're at and how to break this down so you can get through it. But I know for sure when I think about it, and you know, I am on my knees in gratitude that I was able to do that work prior to this time. because, as I said, I really absolutely don't know if I would have survived it completely. So for me, there's 3 levels of healing. And if you're watching this video on your own healing journey, then, I would invite you to think about the possibilities of where you are on this journey. The first stage in the healing journey is the cognitive stage, the thought-based stage. So the first healing is always thought-based. When we're understanding our thoughts, because they're often the first link we have to a problem, aren't they? They're the first thing we hear, they're the first thing we understand, and we get really in contact, or can get in contact with the thoughts that we're having, the thoughts that are coming up, the way that we're experiencing our difficulty through our thought system, through our thinking. And that's often where we'll go and seek help. And it's often the first, and I call this the top-down approach, it's often the first place that we'll start to try and make changes to our thoughts, which is where all the mindset stuff comes in. Now, the thoughts that we may hear, say, I'm going to use an example the entire way through the 3 levels so that you can understand. Say the thought was that you didn't matter. Say the thought that nobody cared, that nobody was bothered about you. Say that was the thought, and it was a reoccurring thought. And maybe in isolation, it seems like that's the evidence is all there, that there's nobody caring, nobody wanting to be around you, nobody. And this not mattering is at a thought-based level, and it's roaring and shouting, and it's dictating, and you're seeing everything through that thought system. And you try your best to work with that thought system and change the thought system the entire time, and you get respite for a wee while, and it comes back, and you get another respite. And you can change the thought system, but if you haven't changed the core concept of why you don't matter and how that was birthed, then that thought-based system will continue just to kind of drive you crazy. The second part of that, which is often what we talk about deeper healing, and there's there's this bottom-up approach now, which is the emotional part of that not mattering thought. So there's an emotional connection. So you feel a certain way when you think those thoughts, so your body. So if it was not mattering, for example, you might feel shame. Now, this is just a random example. Nobody thought this through and just pulled these words together. So, maybe if you're thinking you don't matter, nobody wants to be around you, nobody's really bothered about you, because, then you get into this kind of loathing feeling of self, the shame. So the emotional content, which is often the most difficult thing, because the reality of it is, if we had a thought that didn't have feelings, the thought would pass by. The thought's only a problem because the thought is loaded in emotion. It's so bloody difficult. So this thought that we try to win the war with can never really go until its companion, the emotion, is put into the mix. Which is why you, and I would encourage you to look for a bottom-up approach to healing. Because now what we're doing is we're incorporating the emotional content with the thought together, and we're healing from that place. Now, when you heal from that place, when you heal from the bottom-up approach, when you heal the emotional content, the shame, the loathing, the hatred of self, alongside the idea, the thought-based system, you have a far better chance of healing. And the reason for that is, if you change the thought alone without changing the self, without changing the shame, without changing the loathing, the feeling will trigger the same thought. So you could have done 6 months hard graft, 6 months work changing this self, or changing this not mattering, looking for evidence, doing all that stuff. And the minute that feeling of loathing, or the minute that feeling of shame hits, then the thoughts will fire again, because the thoughts and feelings are intertwined. They don't exist in 2 parallel universes, they are actually connected. So it's really important that level 1 is done, and it's the beginning. I always see that as the beginning of the exploration. And in clinical practice, clients will always say, are we there? We're not even near the surface when we're on thought-based level. We're just at this is what I call understanding level. You're just an understanding level. So the first stage is the thoughts, the second stage is the feelings that come along with it. But what I can share with you is the third stage is a real game changer. And it's a real game changer because it's the somatics. It's the somatic part, not just the emotional part, it's the somatic part of that wound. So let me explain what that means. If you experience this not mattering as a child, if you experience it as a teenager, if you were abandoned by your besties and when you were 14, and it caused you absolute shame, embarrassment, self-loathing, self-hatred, and you're holding this, and you have this idea of yourself. Well, when that experience would have happened, when that would have happened, you would have had an entire experience around that. So your body would have behaved in a certain way. So maybe that loathing would have got all through your arms, got down through, gave you shivers in your back of your neck, gave you an entire experience. Maybe that made you feel like you were about to fall from a great height, somatically. Maybe it felt like the floor opened up and you were about to fall through it. Maybe it felt like you had lost control of yourself. And there, what we have then for the latter part of the somatics is how your nervous system responds. Did you go into panic? Did you go into shutdown? Did you go into freeze? What happened? Now, when we heal that entire process from start to finish, so we just don't change the thought, we work with the feeling and the thought together. We just don't change the thought and the feeling, we work with the experience of thinking and feeling that way at whatever age you were. So if you use the teenager as an example, if you use that, if that happened to you and you just felt like your whole world had crumbled, the experience of your whole world crumbling, your entire nervous system will kick in at that stage. And depending, because say for example it was connection, you lost all your connections and there was nobody there, well then, I don't want to get too scientific on it, I don't want to bore you too much with the scientifics, but then this dorsal vagal nerve would kick in and you would have this shutdown, this parasympathetic shutdown, and you would be like, you would be in this shutdown mode, this frozen mode. If that was your entire experience of that one thought, of that one feeling, of that one time, then what we have to make sure for the entire thing to go is the entire experience is looked at and that it's healed systematically the way that it was born, and that we get back to the roots of where that happened, how that happened, and we change the meaning that you gave to yourself. We can't change what happened. What happened has happened. And this isn't about, full forgiveness or any of that rubbish. This is about you really coming into your body, understanding the meaning you gave to that experience, understanding how your body responded, understanding what you needed to heal yourself. That's a very short way of kind of explaining how you could come to heal it. But they are the levels that you need to do, to work at, to work and heal a wound. If any of those levels are incomplete, the wound will linger. I'm going to say that again, it's vital. If any of those levels are incomplete, the wound will linger. And that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning of this video. I know for sure that this lockdown would have reignited that old wound had it not been cleared in its entirety. Am I saying that I'm in some enlightened place? Absolutely not. There's plenty more wounds coming down the track that I'll have to deal with. But that particular one, that one that had such an explosive, because that wound for me, if I explain it in the 3 levels, is there's nothing good to do. There's nothing out there was the thought. It was black, it was dark. That was the somatics. The somatics of it was that I couldn't visually see any light. It was just dark, it was black, it was heavy. It felt heavy in my body like a big metal jacket. The emotion of it was like a black hole. It was empty, it was dark, it was dank. The experience of that, then the meaning that I gave to that, caused an entire amygdala hijack. If anybody has experienced amygdala hijack, you can't think straight, you have whooshing in your body, it's full fear, it's full panic attack. So if I hadn't have cleared that, then this lockdown would have brought that entire experience in 2 split seconds. There's no doubt about it. And the reality of it is, there is many of us. They talk about the impact of this being a mental health impact. What we are looking at here is the birthing of old wounds through this experience, on top of this experience itself, on top of the difficulty, the normal difficulty of trying to manage life in a pandemic. For whatever reason, life is difficult because it's difficult differently for everybody depending on your circumstances. And that is what's happening. I've spoke about that loads before, but I wanted to break that healing journey down, because even if the pandemic hasn't triggered it, maybe you're just stuck in it. Maybe you're just trying to see where you are. Maybe you're just trying to heal and you don't know where you are. But if you haven't healed those three pieces, then you're at risk of the wound rebirth, and you're at the risk of it triggering. Now, it depends on how far down you are in that process. It won't trigger with the same vigour, it won't trigger with the same difficulty. But if you certainly haven't cleaned any nervous system stuff, if you haven't cleared any of that, if you haven't completed any of that nervous system processing, if you haven't healed any of that stuff, it will trigger the entire thing. So please be mindful of this. Be gentle. Maybe it's not you experiencing it. Maybe it's your friend. Maybe it's your neighbour. Maybe it's somebody around you. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's your children. Maybe it's your older teenagers. Maybe it's your young people in your families. Just be gentle with yourself, won't you? Try and understand what it is that's happening. You don't label yourself. Don't give yourself a hard time about it. It's just really natural. It's really normal. It happens to every single one of us. And just be gentle and understand where you are, and seek help with it, because there's loads of great somatic practitioners out there. They're online. There's great people in Derry that understand loads of somatics, and we're training therapists at the minute to understand how to actually work in the body. So, reach out and get some help. But most of all, understand that this is all right, and that's exactly what's happening to you. If you have any questions, shoot them my way. I'm going to be answering them online, and hopefully, I couldn't see your comments because they all stopped. They stopped after Billy fixed her earphones, so I haven't seen anybody's comments. I don't know if it was helpful or if it wasn't. I really do hope it was. And I hope that at some level it'll maybe help you brace yourself for maybe what you're experiencing or those around you experiencing. So I'll be back next week with another wee video for you. If there's anything you'd like specific, if you want me to narrow down on anything, if you want me to specifically talk about something, no problem whatsoever. Just throw me a PM and we'll get going. And I'll see you again next week at some stage. Thanks again, and see you all soon.